welcome to the Side Netting Podcast, the place where we discuss all things football, add in a couple of games, and almost definitely go off on a tangent or two. This week, we're going to have our Premier League preview episode. As always, I'm joined by my friend, my cousin, and fellow Arsenal sufferer, Kieran Burke. Kieran, how are we going?
Good morning, Con. I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
Yeah, as we dipped into a little bit before we press record, it's a miserable day in Australia, finally fitting the winter moniker this part of the world doesn't seem to realise that we're in.
Well, we're winter all year round over here, so no change. Looking out, it's another gloomy day.
Well, we've got a big episode today, Kieran, so we'll get straight into it. We're going to be previewing the upcoming Premier League season, but before we get into our thoughts on the season, we're just going to see how much Kieran remembers of last season, the 2022-2023 years. I've got 8 questions, Kieran, and all you need to do is pick 4 numbers between 1 and 8, and I'll ask you each of those questions. If you get 3 out of 4 correct, I'll give you the pleasure of picking today's song to close the podcast. If you don't reach that number of 3, then it's my turn to pick. Are you ready?
The pressure's on. Let's do it. Sounds good.
Let's test that memory. Kieran, what's your first number?
I'll go number 1 first. Why not?
Okay. Kieran, who finished 13th in the table last season?
13th.
We're not making it easy. Picking a number straight in the middle.
Just one of those. It's the middle zone no one cares about. Right, I'm trying to think. I'm working down. I'm thinking Chelsea, Palace. I think West Ham ended up near there, even though they were near relegation. I feel like they pushed up towards the end, but they might have been 14th. I know Palace and Chelsea, I think, were higher than that. I think Palace were 12th in the end, or 11th. 13th, you said?
I did indeed.
I'm torn between Palace and West Ham. I don't know. Well, where did Bournemouth end up? They were up near there as well.
All the teams are coming in now. You've gone from being a clear 50-50 to being back to God knows where.
You know what?
This is the first
Crystal
question.
Palace, because they were my first kind of thought. So I'll go Crystal Palace.
Okay. The answer is Wolves.
Oh, for God's sake! I thought they were lower down than that.
No, 13th were Wolves.
Up to 13th.
They were, as you were saying before, it was that real middle pack of relegation battlers. Palace were 11th, Chelsea were 12th, Wolves were 13th.
Out of interest, where were Palace? 10th?
11th.
11th. Damn it.
Well, it's right on the edge immediately now.
Pressure's on. Pressure's on now.
What's your second number?
I'll go lucky number 8. I need something.
Lucky number 8. Okay. Complete this sequence. West Ham, Bournemouth, blank, Everton.
This is knowledge of the Prem table. I'm not doing too well here. Sorry, please repeat.
West Ham, Bournemouth, blank, Everton.
These teams just didn't finish in the order I remember.
You have picked the only 2 questions that are based around the table here.
Oh, for God's sake. I should have revised it. West Ham. You said West Ham, Bournemouth, blank, Everton.
Yes. So who's the team in blank? Complete the sequence.
I'm thinking Notts Forest. But
are you going to go with Notts Forest?
Locked in. Yeah. We'll go Notts Forest.
We're locked in on Notts Forest. You are correct. It was Nottingham Forest. That is the bottom 4 of non-relegated teams.
Get in.
So we're 1 out of 2. He's still in the game. Okay, you've gone top. You've gone bottom. Where are we going now in the middle?
I'll go 7.
Go 7. Okay. Who was the first Premier League manager sacking of 2023? So not of the season, of the year 2023.
That's a curveball. Because I think I had, was it Scott Parker as the first manager sacked in the season as a whole? So you knew I would have known that one. So you thought you'll throw a little curveball in.
You got your prediction right last season, but there's a manager sacking pressure on you now of going 2 for 2.
2023. That is actually a tough one. Right, let me think.
There was no shortage of sackings either last season. They were dropping by the wayside. But who was the first body in 2023, mate?
My brain's just stuck at the moment. I'm gonna go Steven Gerrard.
We're gonna go Steven Gerrard. It's Frank Lampard.
Both mid-English midfielders.
Oh, shots absolutely fired. We're back after a couple of week break, and you just decided to get every Chelsea and Liverpool fan to come flocking.
Rattled.
I'd like to distance myself at this time from my co-host's statements. Those are the views of Kieran
Lies.
Burke and only Kieran Burke.
So I'll release an official statement later today.
Get the notes app out.
I'll tweet a
Okay,
picture of a
we're
car.
now-
A Jolie Lescott special.
What's your final number to gain a bit of respect?
Respect. Me free. So I'll go number 3.
Okay, so I'm going to read you the nationality of the positions in this team. You have to guess what team it is.
Okay.
I feel like it's relatively easy from the keeper, but the goalkeeper is Argentinian. The defence is English, Spanish. The midfield, Jamaica, Scotland, Brazil, England. And the forwards, England and Argentina.
Aston Villa.
That is indeed Aston Villa. There you go. So a
The
respectable...
Jamaican gave it away as well. Leon Bailey.
The
of
Jamaican
course.
gave it away.
Yeah, because Leon Bailey, I think, is one of the only Jamaican players in the Prem.
Yeah, fair. I would have thought it'd be given away from the off, to be fair.
Yeah, I did kind of get it relatively quick from Argentina, but you never know what kind of random Argentinian keeper might be lurking in the lower depths of the Premier League. You just never know.
I'll tell you what, kids. You've got 2 right, 2 wrong. We've got 50-50. I'll change the rules of my own quiz. And we'll make this the decider.
Oh, the pressure's on now.
Pressure's on now. You've gone 2 for 2. I like to have a majority verdict. So we'll give you one more chance here to redeem yourself.
Am I picking the last question
You're
then?
picking the final number.
Let's go with number 6. I feel like a bingo caller this morning.
On its own.
Two fat ladies.
Number 6.
Oh, yours is better, I've got to be honest. Future career in bingo calling for you
Okay.
there, pal.
What's 2 little ducks? 22? Here we go. He knows all of them.
You're flying.
Okay. Away from my future as a bingo caller, my current job as a quiz host. There are 3 teams that Erling Haaland did not score against last season. Name any of those 3 teams.
Oh, that is a tough one. I wouldn't have even thought there was 3 teams. The boy was just scoring left, right, and centre. Right, let me work logically through. He definitely scored against us, which was great fun. I feel like I feel like United done comparatively well against them, but I do think I remember him scoring in the home fixture against them, so I think that rules them out.
Didn't City beat them like 6-0 or 7-0 or something? They had, or 6-3 it was.
I think
season.
United beat them at home, but then they spanked them towards the end. Yeah,
Absolutely hammered them.
I can't remember the Liverpool City games, if I'm being honest, so I'm going to hold off on that for now. It's just tough because he scored. You know what? I'll be honest, I can't fully remember, but based on Spurs' weird track record of being good against City, I'm leaning towards Spurs, but I'm trying to think if there was any like random. I remember Notts Forest getting a good 1-1 draw against City as well, but I don't know what the other game finished. And it could have been like Haaland scored 4 and I'll look like a twat, so I'll probably steer clear of them.
I'm enjoying you slowly losing your mind there.
Everton done well in one of the games, but again, they could have been absolutely spanked in the other game. I'm leaning towards Spurs here, but I'm trying to just rack my brain if there was any time I actually remember a team that he didn't score against. Did I have any FPL keepers that got points when Haaland was playing? I probably would have had them on the bench. I'm kind of thinking either Spurs or Brighton. I'm going to go Spurs because it was the first one I thought of, although that didn't treat me well on the last time I went for that tactic. But let's go Spurs.
You have said the team already, but not with your answer.
For fuck's sake.
So it was Brentford, Chelsea, and Liverpool.
Oh, for God's sake. Well, there you go.
A respectable-ish performance in the quiz there, Kieran. but not quite a victory. 2 correct, 3 wrong. So I will end the episode today with my song choice. To be fair, I think you're going to enjoy it, but we have a lot to discuss until we get to that point. So should we get straight into the Premier League preview?
Let's crack on.
So for our Premier League preview, we're going to start off with naming our 1 to 7. So the teams we think are going to win the league, finish in Europe, and then we're going to go on to our sort of mid-table block and then go down into the relegation fodder. So Kieran, do you want to kick us off with your 7th position up to who you think is going to win the league this season? In fact, go 7 to 2nd, and we'll hold off on your...
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, very, very excited for the start of the Prem this year. It always seems like such a long gap waiting for the Prem to restart. So exciting times. I'll just list my 7 to 2, and then obviously we'll have a bit of a chat around it after. So 7th, and I have ummed and ahed over this a bit. So when I'm talking around it, I'm going to kind of caveat that it could be interchangeable. But 7th, I've got Aston Villa. 6th, I've got Newcastle. 5th, which might surprise a few, I've got Man United, not getting top 4. 4th, I've gone Chelsea. 3rd, I've gone Man City, which could raise a few eyebrows. And 2nd, I've gone Liverpool.
Okay, so off the bat, which I'll go into mine, we have very, very different expectations on Liverpool. I have Liverpool 7th, Brighton 6th. And I had these next few positions was where I really ummed and ahed. I have Chelsea 5th, Newcastle 4th, Man United 3rd, Man City in 2nd. So it sounds like we've got the same winner. Not biased at all here.
No bias. We're never biased on this podcast.
Absolutely not. I don't even know who you support.
No, neither. Arsenal. Who was that?
1 second. Who's that? Oh no, we've not done that game in a while. That went so well last time.
Maybe next week.
So kids, Liverpool.
Yes.
Sell me on Liverpool.
Yeah, so thoughts around Liverpool. I just expect their team to gel a bit more. I feel like they know themselves a bit more now since kind of Mane's gone. Because if you look at their back end of last season, they were the Liverpool that they had been, and they just went on a mad run of results. And I just think with them kind of they were holding on to those kind of midfielders that were getting a bit past it. You had I you know what, I actually don't mind Henderson, but Fabinho was not looking like himself at all. So they're kind of getting them out. They've obviously got McAllister in, and the man whose name I daren't pronounce, starting with the big S, which you thankfully pronounced for me on the last podcast, who both like good midfielders, going to add that creativity in there. And I think the players that they'd bought in before, the likes of Gakpo, Nunes, obviously Luis Diaz now will be fit, hopefully, from the start of the season for them. I just expect them to hit the ground running a bit more. They were very sort of chop change last year, and I think the likes of Trent potentially moving into that midfield is quite exciting for them. So I just expect them to gel a lot more. And if the back end of last season is anything to go by, with the additions of those sort of midfielders coming in as well, this is very much dependent on that forward line really clicking now. Obviously Salah's Mr. Consistent anyway, but I think the likes of Gakpo, Nunes need to step up as well. Obviously Jota was injured as well last season for large parts, but if they come in and you know are the players that they can be, I can see Liverpool just, they're a very hard team to beat at home in particular, which I think puts them up there anyway. So yeah, that's why I did and ah over that one, but I can just see them clicking this season.
Yeah, I can understand that. When I was making my notes and sort of going over it, there were pros that Liverpool have, and you've mentioned them there. And it's those players that they brought in last season who've now bedded in, Nunes, Diaz, that they've now had that opportunity to bed into the team and become comfortable. Now they have a second season, and Nunes especially is a player that has a lot of pressure on him now to perform. And as you say, if they can click, then there's a real opportunity there for them to push on and to battle high. For me personally, I still think second and that sort of top end battling for the league, I still think that's a bit far for them this season. I don't think I've seen enough in terms of their recruitment. Even though they were more positive that second half of the season, they were still a little bit inconsistent. Feels like Klopp, if you look at Klopp's record, especially at Dortmund, where he had a poor season, he found it very, very difficult to then pick that back up. And it seems like it's gone a very similar way at Liverpool. And this season will show whether that's true or not. But when you look around them, I think they are bottom of that third to seventh.
That's fair enough. My thinking partly was I've got some major doubts over the other teams in that bulk for me due to
who are your big doubts?
I think Newcastle overperformed last year that people don't factor in. I think they've done amazingly well. Don't get me wrong, they've brought in some really good players as well, which I think will prove really good for them. I just think with Champions League, that added pressure, I can't see them getting in the top four again. I've got them in sixth, which is still respectable. I just think they massively overperformed last season. Obviously, bringing in the likes of Harvey Barnes, Tonali, they're going to be up there, but I just can't see them doing that again for me. Similarly, well, not similarly, but Man City, Mahrez is obviously gone, Gundogan's gone. It might just be a wishful thinking, to be honest, but I see them dropping off a bit next year. I really do.
It's like what do you get the person that's got everything?
Exactly, that's it. It's the hunger. Look at okay. We might be giving away
Here we
who
go.
we think's going to be top here, but a young, hungry squad that hasn't done it before. You have to have. I can't remember who done an interview on this before, but it's like motivating yourself when you've already won it all before. And I think there was a manager talking about having a squad of players who've won it all before, and it can be harder to kind of get the juices flowing for them as such. So, like City, so they brought in Kovacic, and they're looking to sign that Vardiol, who's no doubt a brilliant centre-back. He looked amazing at the World Cup. But I just think, particularly if, like they were talking about Walker potentially leaving, if that happens, that will be a massive loss. Bernardo Silva was again one of those that's kind of on the edge of potentially going. So, it might be wishful thinking, but I see them dropping off.
It does feel like they haven't strengthened. And when you look at the players they've lost, like you look at how massive Gundogan was, maybe not so much out-and-out starter because of the way that Pep plays his team, but how important Gundogan was to that squad last season, as very much as a bit part player. Mahrez, how important he was.
Yeah.
And Kovacic isn't a player I rate very highly into a team of that level. He'd very much be sort of a very strong acquisition for a mid-table team. For a team like Man City, it's not something I understand very much at all. I don't get what he brings to that squad. And last season, Man City went into it. Well, these are very much the reasons why I have them finishing second, and I think that sort of says a lot. Where you have them finishing third while having no hunger, no nothing. Like, we have them dropping off slightly, which speaks to how good Man City still are, obviously.
They could go and walk the league quite easily again.
Oh, definitely.
But I just have a feeling this year that it could be the year. And just going back to Kovacic, obviously, if there's any man to kind of mould a player into someone who becomes unbelievable, it is Pep. So
of course.
It wouldn't surprise me in the same vein if Kovacic goes and becomes world class. But as you said, I don't see that at the minute, and I think it would take some time to get him into Pep's style. And speaking of Pep
definitely.
rotation, I'm sure that'll be something we have a little moan about on the FPL bit next week.
Oh, I'm sure Pep roulette is going to be back aplenty.
Good old
Yeah, but
peppery lad.
with that as well, with Man City, last season they very clearly went into it with the goal of winning the Champions League. You saw that with how they didn't run away with the league. They
Yeah,
didn't. Obviously, part of that was down to how good Arsenal were, but another part of that was down to City being sort of slow off the boil in the league, and there was a lot of focus on the Champions League, and then
yeah,
the league and the FA Cup kind of just got swept alongside it. That's what we said before. Do they have that motivation now? No team has ever won the Premier League 4 seasons in a row, so that will be what they're looking at now. And for a team like Man City, I think it will come down to, for those players, is that enough? And
yeah,
you could sort of fall on either side of that, I think.
yeah. Agreed. Moving on
Yeah.
then, we haven't really discussed Man United or Chelsea. Remind me where you had them both.
I had them United third, Chelsea fifth, and I was quite set on Newcastle fourth, and we'll jump back to Newcastle in a moment. But we'll stick with these two clubs for now. I had Newcastle fourth, quite dead set, and those two teams I rotated a couple of times, third and fifth, and I landed on where I am. I feel like Chelsea, it will be a more positive rebuilding year. I I rate Pochettino as highly as anyone else, really. I think the turnover that Chelsea have had is a lot more positive than last year, where it just looked like so much was coming in and not much was actually being rotated. They seem to have got rid of a few players now, bedded them in. If any manager can pull together a team like this that was available, Pochettino was the perfect choice. The only negative I'm looking at for Chelsea at the minute is the goalkeeper. Is
Yeah.
is Kepa up to it? I don't feel like he has been for a few years now. And United, I don't I don't think they're as good. I don't understand where this idea that United are going to challenge for the league is. It was like I
Yeah.
watched a different team last season. I've seen a lot of previews and things where like United are going to be up and challenging, Liverpool going to be up and part of that obviously feeds into the Arsenal bias of we're somehow underdogs even though we finished second. But another part is I look at Man United and they're a team that had the lowest number of goals in the top nine. I believe they're the same number of goals scored as Brentford, and they've got Hoyland in, and we'll see what happens with him. Rashford, they're going to be relying on heavily. I think you're where you look. I don't know if you agree on this one. Where you look at Man United, I think it will depend on how much you rate Mount as
Yeah.
an addition to that team.
Which is probably why I've got them fifth, if I'm being completely honest. Um, for me, I'd agree with a lot of what you just said there. I'm really unconvinced by United. I just think they were underwhelming last season. Probably, were lucky to even finish where they did because of how bad teams like Chelsea were. So if they sort of come good now, if Liverpool were a bit more consistent, and I mean they nearly caught them in the end anyway, and not quite, but they nearly did with their run towards the end. I think bringing in Mount and Onana, okay, they needed a keeper, but that's not gonna suddenly make them challenge. For me, they need a lot more. Anthony's underwhelming, Sancho's underwhelming. They're bringing in a striker who's unproven, who's probably going to take. I reckon it'll take a season to adapt. If I'm being completely honest, I'm not.
If
sure
history
he's
tells
going
us
to be.
anything, I think you'll be spot on. Yeah,
Yeah, like
a lot.
Haaland's just a freak of nature that's just come in and just taken the league by the bollocks and
But
just.
not just is Haaland a freak of nature, which he very much is. The man's insane. But he was at a Dortmund team who were up near the top of the Bundesliga, who were in the Champions League challenging.
Yeah,
Whereas he's at a good Atalanta team,
yeah,
but there's different ways,
different
and so
pressures.
when you're
Yeah,
having a player that comes, pressures is the exact word I was going to use. When you have a player that comes into a team where a lot of pressure is going to be on him to score goals, it's going to take him a bit of time to bed in. A bit like Nunes with Liverpool.
agreed. And I think with United, they've not really got rid of that deadwood that's still there. For me, you've still got like Maguire loitering around. A few others I can't think of off the top of my head that have like McTominay's, your Freds that just aren't good enough, and they're
Well,
still there.
McTominay's been linked to get a transfer away, so we'll
Okay,
see what
I've
happens
not
with
seen
that
that.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, for me, United, I can't see doing well. Just quickly touching on Chelsea, I've got them in fourth. I expect them to gel. I think they've done well at shipping out a load of players that Pochettino's not going to want to use, and they've got good money for them as well. And then they've got the likes of Nkunku coming in, Nicholas Jackson, who I've saw a few clips of him pre-season and looks a good player from Villarreal. And then they've brought a few others in, I believe Diassi, the centre-back. So I think they're going to kick on next season, if I'm being honest. I think a manager in there who knows what he's doing, can steady the ship. He's got rid of players he doesn't want to use. They've got good money for it, so they can probably spend a little bit more as well. Getting rid of players, they don't want to use. So for me, I see them fourth next year, which is partly because of what I mentioned about being unconvinced by United, and obviously I touched on Newcastle. I just think they'll struggle with the added pressure of the Champions League.
Yeah, with Newcastle, and you said your thoughts on there. I thought with Newcastle, I think their recruitment's been good. They've not fallen into that trap, and we said it when we spoke about Newcastle a few weeks ago now, where it doesn't like they fall into that trap of just getting money on big names who may not have any impact on their team. They've gone sensible, they've gone youth-focused, they're adding to an already very good team. I think if Isaac, one of your boys, if Isaac gets a good injury-free run, he could be vital, or should be vital. Wilson as a secondary striker, in terms of that kind of position, I don't know if there's anyone else you'd want as a player that you can slot in second choice than Wilson. I don't know how happy he'd be of me saying that, but that's exactly why I think he's perfect. The only problem with Newcastle is with them playing that very defensive focused, almost negative kind of football, will teams now know how to play against them? And I think that sort of feeds into what you were saying. That's the only trouble with Newcastle for me. I think they'll be fine in terms of balance in Europe, but when teams learn to play against you, how do you react?
No, fair point. Seventh then, I think I went Villa, you went Brighton. We discussed them quite at length, I think, in the podcast we done last. In terms of
I had Brighton sixth and Liverpool seventh.
Oh, yeah. Apologies, yeah. So obviously we discussed Liverpool. So just quickly on Brighton and Villa, I think we discussed similar teams, I think, in terms of expectations. Both got Europe to balance with coming season. Both, good sides who I think will do well. So I think we can probably move on if you're happy to on that, because I think we've we'll plug the last podcast as well. Go give that a listen as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of our opinions on both of those clubs we discussed at length in that podcast. So to get our more in-depth thoughts, jump back to episode 3. But I'll just briefly touch on Villa, who I've got at 9th, which we'll get into in a moment. But I've got them at 9th, and it was very much a switching situation. I think Brighton and Villa, one of them is going to reaffirm themselves in that top 7, another European season. The other one will sort of just be on the fringes. I just look at them in very similar. I look at Emery and I see a manager who his ceiling is 6th in the league, his basement is like 11th. And if you're a Villa fan, I imagine you'd be delighted with that. I don't think there's any danger of relegation with him, but there's no danger of really pushing those sort of higher level teams. It's quite a nice middling position, which is exactly where Villa would want to be at the moment. And I think they'd be happy with that. Yeah. Great. So yeah, I think we can move past them, as you say, touching it a lot in that episode 3. 8th, Kieran. 8th and 9th. Who did you get there? Because I just mentioned Villa being my 9th, so we'll drop into that as well.
Yeah, so I've gone 8th Spurs and 9th Brighton. I think we've both had Spurs outside the top 7, which... I
had them exactly again, the same position.
No Arsenal bias creeping in there, but again, one we discussed at length, I think, in the last episode. But I think Spurs, very much going to be a transition season for them. Mm-hmm. It looks as if Kane could be leaving. It's still up in the air, to be honest. But I think, obviously, when we were discussing that last week, we both sort of said we expect him to leave. Obviously, they've brought in the likes of Maddison, who... great signing, will add that creativity. I'm just still massively unconvinced over them defensively. I think they've not brought in the players that they need to, especially to hit the ground running now with a week to go until the start of the season. That was a point we mentioned a few weeks ago. Early business is really important when you want to start the season quickly, something we Arsenal hadn't done in the past and kind of came back to bite us with slow starts to the season. So, to be proven wrong, but I'm not expecting much at all from Spurs this season, which hence why I've got them in 8th and could have easily interchanged them with Brighton, who I've put in 9th. That's my 8 and 9. What about yourself, pal?
Yeah, I had Tottenham in 8th as well. I said before, Villa 9th. You say about Arsenal bias, it'd be fun if it was just Arsenal bias, but there doesn't look to be enough, as you say, with strength. They've not strengthened enough at all. It doesn't feel like they're prepared for Kane to leave, and I guess that's sometimes a difficult thing when you have like a saga like this that goes on and on. If you get in a replacement, you're almost admitting defeat already. I understand that, but they don't look ready for it. They don't look ready for the season defensively, as you touched on there. There's nothing about this Tottenham team that I feel positive about aside from their manager.
Yeah.
Like you look at a team sometimes that has no European competition. Like, oh, they could really focus on the league. And I just look at Tottenham, and there's nothing about that Tottenham team on the pitch that I feel positively about. Even Maddison, who I rate highly, there's no one that I feel like he can partner up with. There's no one for him to work with creatively in that team that'll really push them on.
Yeah, I think we touched on previously the importance of Son having a good season. If he steps up in the absence of Kane, then they could creep slightly higher. I just think defensively they're a mess, to be honest. I think no matter how many goals you can score, as well with Kane gone, it's obviously going to be less than what it would have been. But defensively, they're too easy to get at. And obviously with the new manager coming in, he can sort that out to an extent. But I think Gary Neville said once about the Arsenal defence being uncoachable with Luiz, Mustafi, which at the time, obviously we were like, oh, what are you talking about? But looking back, he was completely right. And I just get the same feeling with Spurs at the moment.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, as we sort of said with Brighton and Villa for our more in-depth thoughts. We spoke about them on episode 3, but yeah, if you're a Spurs fan going into this season, message us at SideNettingPod on Twitter. Let us know if you disagree with anything we've said there. But there's nothing for me in that Tottenham team on the pitch that there is to look forward to. So we'll kick on, Kiers. We'll discuss 10th place. And then before we finish up the podcast for this week and we have a little game, we'll discuss Arsenal, as I realise we've skipped by them. So we'll discuss our 10th place and then we'll discuss Arsenal before rounding off part 1 of our Premier League preview. So 10th, Kiers, who's you have rounding out the top 10?
So 10th, I've gone Crystal Palace. And this was one I very nearly changed at the last minute to move them lower. Partly because they've obviously lost Zaha now, who's been kind of a key player for them for a long time. But part of the thinking was with him going, your Eze's and Elise's will step up massively, I think. And they're just a solid team. They obviously improved back end of last season. Hodgson's steadied the ship a bit, sorry. Yeah, I think they're a tough team to beat. I can see the middle of the road. The teams below them, I have reasons for them being below them, basically. So, hence why, yeah. I've got Palace 10th. What about yourself?
Yeah, so I've gone for Brentford in 10th. A team that in a similar way to Palace, losing one of their real talisman in Tony. And I think a lot of pressure will be on Mbeumo to step up, as he did tend to do when they were without Tony last season. I think there was a real positive step for them. They just, at this point, they're a mid-table club. I think when we're going to get into this, when we hit into the second half of the preview, we're now in these discussions on a real clump of teams that you could basically throw at the table in any direction and you wouldn't have much arguments with it. But Brentford, I've gone for the top of this bunch, because I feel like over the last few seasons, they've proven themselves to just be a really solid mid-table club who are difficult to break down, who are very good attackingly. Thomas Frank is a very hard-to-beat manager tactically. So I've gone with Brentford 10th, but as I say, I could have easily looked at them 13th 12th.
Yeah.
We're at that point, I think, in the discussions, which we'll get into part 2 with the rest of those teams. But I think Brentford are a best of the rest situation.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. I had them very, very close by.
So we'll go into the rest of the second half of the table next week. But before we finish, Kieran, we somehow missed out on our number one. We only gave them a passing comment. So, Kieran, who have you got winning the league again?
The Gun, of course. It's our time.
Bias to one side. Bias aside, why do you have Arsenal winning the league?
Brilliant young squad. Smart business in the summer. Got it done early. Hunger to win the league. Style of play. And Man City dropping off slightly.
This is another one. This is like the flip to Man United, where you see a lot of pre-season predictions and preview articles and things. And it is biased that it does bleed into everything you talk about. But it feels like if it was any other club, they'd be talking about, winning the league, out and out, like this is your team to beat. Early business done. 2 top tier signings. 1 I'm not too convinced on, but I can definitely be brought into very quickly. Depth, which was Arsenal's biggest problem last season, seems to have been mostly solved.
Yeah.
You look at that team and you look at the rotation opportunities it now gives you going back into the Champions League. That will be key, and especially in the last quarter of the season, which is where we struggled last year. That's where the season is. That's where the league is really won or lost. You can keep yourself into it. It's that last quarter of the season, and that's where we had no depth. And that feels like the biggest difference we'll have going next year towards the end of the season is depth. And I just...
The mention of Champions League had me frothing at the mouth for a minute there. I was zoned out. The Champions League nights at the carpet, I was sat back thinking
back to those magical days of old. Who can forget Yaya Sanogo scoring the winner in the second minute against Dortmund? How you can score a winner in the second minute, I'm not quite sure if the vocab matches
He's just
up
that
there.
Good.
But it bloody was.
Mr.
What a man.
Cup.
Mr. Emirates Cup. Yeah, I just can't understand how people aren't looking at this Arsenal team at the real top end. You look at how they played last season. You look at, as we say, what they've added to that team. They're a title-winning team, and the only thing that will get in their way is mentality.
I think that'll
be the interesting
what is
thing.
writing us off. I think that's what will always write us off until we prove people wrong, which is completely fair enough.
Well, you say that, but the previous times we've had mentality issues, we bounce straight back. Like, you look at, under Arteta, we finished outside of Europe. We bounced back the following season. We finished just outside of the Champions League. We bounced back the following season. We finished just outside of the title.
I completely agree. I just think people don't look at the bigger picture when it's not their own club. I think it's fair enough, but I completely agree. I think we'll bounce back and win the league next season. We've learned from, I hope we've learned from the past 2 years of narrowly missing out on something. And I think we're ready now. I think we've got the leaders in the squad that will grab the game by the balls. And obviously we saw that a lot more last year with coming back from... I don't remember before last season that many times in a season, even once in a season, coming down from 2-0 and winning 3-2. So
mentality.
You look at,
that was the real mentality last season. That was the real... you can look at the last quarter and it wasn't a mentality issue. It was a depth issue. It was a fitness issue. There was other issues abound beyond mentality.
Yeah, we have been painted with the same brush due to previous years, and I think people are just ignoring the fact that we've got better every single year. We've done good business this summer early, which I think is a key thing.
Early is key.
And the hunger in this squad to win the league must be unbelievable.
In every interview with an Arsenal player, it just radiates off of them. You look at players like Saka, Ramsdale, in their interviews, it's just so clear how important it is to them.
And people will say, everyone wants to win the league. Well, yeah, I understand that, but we've come so close now. They've almost tasted it, and it's just that next step. So I think, bias aside, it will also depend on if City are still at that same level. It's going to be very, very tough. But I think we have the squad now to fully compete. And I know it's a community shield and it means nothing, but it'll be interesting to see if they both go full strength Sunday, like how they match up, because obviously that was a big thing that shot us in the foot last season, losing twice to City. You can't do that if you want to win the league, realistically, losing 2 6-point games.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'd happily lose on Sunday and play no one and just go for the league, to be honest. But I do get the point you're making.
Ultimately means nothing as a community shield, but it would be. I hope both teams do go full strength and we can see
I hope both teams have fun.
They match up. It's all about go out there and have fun, guys.
Just have a great day.
Football's the winner. Football's the winner. Forget about the result.
I hope they do the full Sunday league 3 cheers at the end of the game.
Give Big Sambi Lukonga the most improved player for the year.
Yeah, but bias fully in. We're bringing that bias back in. I, for one, can't wait till the end of the season when all of these...
We fucking win it all.
Exactly, when we fucking win it all. And all these people are, there's no mentality. Liverpool are going to be second again. Man United, they're definitely going to be up there. And those bastards are all away while Mikel Arteta and his tricky Reds stroll around North London, swinging the Premier League above their head from the ribbons.
Come on.
Win the dog is getting his own bus.
There's no bias, though.
No bias here. No bias here. We'll
Here
put
on
the
the
bias back
Side
to...
Net Pod, we support all teams in the Premier League, of course.
We hate them all equally.
Impartial as ever. But Arsenal are fucking massive and we're winning it all. But other than that...
Aside from the fact that Arsenal are going unbeaten, it's going to be a close season from 2nd to 20th. That's the first half of the table wrapped up, Kiers. And we'll be back on Thursday to discuss the other half of the table alongside mine and Kieran's FPL teams and get some match predictions from the opening weekend. But to wrap up this week's podcast, we'll have a little game of sudden death.
It's been long awaited, this little game. It's been in the works for a few podcast episodes and we haven't got round to it. So I'm glad to finally blessed with its presence this week.
Yeah, a little pill behind the curtain. Sudden death has been bumped from every podcast since the first episode. So we're currently 0 for 3 on sudden death. There's a lot of internal pressure now. Does sudden death have the mentality, Kieran, to pull off being a good game?
Gary Neville, is that you?
Man United are going to win sudden death. So, the rules. The random wheel is going to decide on a category. Then starting with Kieran, we're going to go back and forth, naming answers in that category. When a player stumbles, takes too long, or is just wrong, they lose the round. So it'll be best 2 out of 3. Kieran, myself and you, a few months ago now, decided on these 6 categories for the wheel. They are Arsenal players to have more than 50 appearances. They are the all-time top 20 Premier League goal scorers. English managers. La Liga teams, for a little bit of Spanish flair. Stadiums of the 92 Premier League and Football League clubs. And players that have the same letter repeated more than once in their name. Anything you'd prefer there, Kieran? Anything the knowledge is really firing on today?
No. I forgot all the categories, so it's very much going to be a hit and hope. So let's go for it. I hope one comes up that I have more than one answer for, or at least one answer. So this could be interesting.
I'm hoping it's like who's that? And it's over in like 20 seconds.
We put out our misery early doors.
Okay, the wheel is spinning round and round. The wheelie wheel goes. Where it stops, nobody knows. Well, I know because it's just stopped. Category number 1, Kieran. I'll say the category and then you can start us off. Is La Liga teams.
Okay, interesting. Right, so we're just going back and forth until we have a repeat answer or a pause. Right, straight in then. Barcelona.
Or one answer. Atletico Madrid.
Real Madrid.
Athletic Bilbao.
Real Betis.
Oh, Valencia.
Real Sociedad.
Villarreal.
Oh, I just had Villarreal. Espanyol.
Mallorca.
Are they in La Liga?
Would you like to use a check, Kieran?
I would like to use my check.
Okay.
They could well
You
be,
get
but
one
I feel
check
like
in
they
this
could be in
game.
the league below.
This is your check. I am going to the La Liga table. I'm very, very quickly scrolling through. I do realise there's going to be other teams here I see. Mallorca are in the table. I was able to see them straight away. I didn't see anyone else. Mallorca are there.
Okay, I'll go Cadiz.
Oh.
Oh.
They,
Ding, ding, ding.
what are they
How
called?
long's our pause going?
The team that begins with V. That's what I was trying to think of. What are they? Rayo Vallecano. That's what I was trying to think of.
Oh yeah, them as well.
That's what I was trying to think. Oh, Seville.
Oh.
Seville and Celta Vigo for you fans of
course.
mid-2000 Champions League.
The next one I had lined up, but I wasn't entirely sure if they're still in the league, was Osasuna.
They are indeed. I did just see them there. Well,
That's all I had left,
what's nice
so.
to know about that is I'm clearly not cheating there with the check because I checked the table and then didn't get a single club.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. You pulled the table up to see that Mallorca were there and then just proceeded to not name anyone else. So that's quite impressive. You were that zoned in on Mallorca. I respect the honesty there. That's unbelievable stuff.
Like a middle-aged man on holiday, I was zoned in on Mallorca.
Get Benidorm in the La Liga, I say. Away days to Benidorm.
Oh, could you imagine the dissension of English ultras if Benidorm had a team?
Benidorm away.
Benidorm, Mallorca to Benidorm away. Stuff for dreams, mate. Okay, you're 1-0 up, Kiz. You get this one. You've won the game. You've redeemed yourself a little bit from the opening quiz catastrophe.
Ooh. Yeah. What's the prize?
Pride, and I'll send you a picture of me smiling.
Oh, I fucking might throw the game now.
Have you got prize in mind? Is there something you want, Kieran?
Bayern Munich.
You want
no,
Bayern
there's
Munich?
not actually. No, there's not. No, I said if we were doing La Liga teams and I knew that was the prize, I would have said Bayern Munich.
Oh, I thought you were trying to get a little ownership stake. In
Any
Bayern
stakes? Have you got any shares in Bayern that I could get transferred over? That would be delightful.
I'll see what I can rustle up. Okay, we're spinning the wheel for round 2. Here it goes. Tick, 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 tick again. Final tick. Okay. This is stadiums of the 92 Football League or Premier League teams.
Oh, okay. Are you starting us off this time?
I can start us off this time. We'll go simple. We'll go bias. We'll go Emirates Stadium.
Ewood Park.
Oh. Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Vicarage Road.
Stamford Bridge.
Anfield.
Brisbane Road.
Old Trafford.
Goodison Park.
Oh my God, have I blanked already?
Oh.
St James.
Oh,
St
he's just got it in. He's just got it in.
Oh my God.
Stadium of Light.
Fucking hell, I'm having a stinker. Oh my God.
There's loads.
Oh my God. I've just blanked. Oh.
Beep. Beep.
Yeah.
Beep.
Oh, that's a stinker.
Oh,
You know
is that
when
a
someone
disaster?
someone says an answer you're not expecting, it throws you off a bit.
What was the answer that threw you off? Brisbane Road. Home at Leighton Orient.
Brisbane Road. Yeah. I weren't expecting it. I know we've graced its presence, but it was a real out there answer that I weren't expecting. That was a horror show from me.
Oh, wow, it all comes
92
down to
stadiums
this.
and I named about 4. Anyway,
That's a
I
disaster.
was trying to I was setting it up for a little.
Oh, of course. You love nothing if not a bit of drama.
Got to keep the viewers entertained.
Oh, definitely. Okay, you ready for the final spin?
Let's do it.
Catchphrase copyrighted by the Side Netting Podcast for the Side Netting Podcast. Never used anywhere else. Spin that wheel. Here it goes. Oh, Arsenal players with more than 50 Premier League appearances.
Oh, okay. Is it back to me to start?
Back to you. This is it.
All right, let's do it. Right, Thierry Henry,
Ray Parlour,
Theo Walcott,
Rob Holding,
Cesc Fabregas.
Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain.
Granit Xhaka.
Gaël Clichy.
Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
Samir Nasri.
Alex Lacazette.
Manuel Almunia.
Oh no, bad memories. Petr Cech.
Jens Lehmann. Oh, 1 second. 1 second.
I did think that could be a contentious one as soon as I said it.
I'm using me check on check. I'm checking.
He's Cech.
Okay.
I'm sure he had 2 seasons.
Oh, I think you're in the clear.
It was a contentious one, but I'm sure he had 2 seasons for us where he started pretty much every Prem game because we had no depth.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I'm really struggling to find it. I can't lie.
Appearances. He actually had 3 seasons where he started pretty much all Prem games. So he actually had over 100 for us in the end. 16-17, 35 games, 17-18, 34 games, and 18-19, 7 games.
Oh, there we go. You're in the clear. Okay. You said Petr Cech. I said someone in response who I actually cannot remember.
You did. I don't remember who it was, but I know you answered. So back to me then. The man's so good they named him once Lauren.
Aaron Ramsey.
Olivier Giroud.
Jack Wilshere.
Lucas Podolski.
Kieran Gibbs.
Gaël Clichy.
I said Gaël Clichy.
Oh,
Get in.
Boom.
You can't see
Gaël.
it, but I've just done 3 backflips in the room in a row.
Benjani, is that you? Did you get your point out as well?
Oh, I've just pointed to everyone in the room, mate. The audience has gone wild, as you can hear.
I don't doubt it.
There we go. Well, I think I can happily say that was a fantastic debut for sudden death there.
And you also keep your shares in Bayern Munich. So
Oh,
it's a big
beautiful
win for
stuff.
you.
We're going up in the world, lads. We're all going to Allianz Arena.
Get me
Okay.
there.
On that fantastic end to the podcast, and in honour of mine and Kieran's 100% accurate winner of the Premier League predictions, we're going to end this week's podcast, Kieran, with North London Forever by Louis Dunford.
We love it.
So, Kieran, thank you for joining me as always.
Thank you very much. We'll do it all again on Thursday.
Indeed, I'll see you Thursday. We'll be back for our second half of the Premier League preview, little FPL team debut, and we'll do our first match predictions for the weekend and get our match predictions competition for the year up and running. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll be back then. Have a good one.
Whatever